So welcome to Parashat, Tazriah and Mezorah, and I'm absolutely delighted to have with me Rav Yehuda Frischman, who has just arrived at Tzfat recently,
right after Rosh Hashanah.
And he is a holistic doctor, and I thought it would be really fascinating for us to hear your views on the Parasha, given that it's so much to do with healing and health. So before we dive into the Parasha, tell us a little bit about your journey here and where you are in life.
I'll take you back on a journey on one foot, al regel achat, 50 years. I fell in love with Eretz Israel when I was a bachor in yeshiva in the 70s, in the early 70s, 50 years ago. I came back to my home in Los Angeles. I got married, and we had a nice baby, a miracle baby, who now is 38 years old. And when our baby was 6 years old, my wife, Aleha Sholem, may she rest in peace, had the first of hundreds and hundreds of epileptic seizures. And the journey really was one of awareness and discovery. My most important concern is, why was she having the seizures and what could be done to stop them? And over the course of the next 10 years, I traveled around the United States, around the world. We saw over 200 doctors, Western, Eastern, alternative, conventional. And most were cookie cutter copies of each other. Essentially, their concern was, how can we treat the seizures? And there was little concern as to why, what was going on, and what the future held. After 10 years, I realized that illness is a message from Hashem. I realized that I had been an indentured servant to my business. I had neglected my spirituality. I had neglected my wife's spirituality. I had neglected our son's spirituality. And Hashem had taken everything away from us, tapping me on the shoulder, as it were, and saying to me, wake up. And I said, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. And we lost our house. And I was forced to send my son away to yeshiva. And my wife's health was slipping through my hands until I realized in 1999 that Hashem was speaking to me and telling me, pay attention. Illness is a message. And the message is, Hashem wants us to be involved in our lives. Hashem wants us to listen to the messages on a day-to-day basis. And I closed my business. I gave my accounts away to a friendly competitor, and I started to study medicine. But I didn't know what type of medicine to study, because there was Chinese medicine, there was Ayurvedic medicine, there was folk medicine, European, American folk medicine, there was homeopathic medicine. Where was Jewish medicine? Everyone speaks about their son, the doctor. It's the most prestigious profession that one can have. Where is it canonized? So I picked up all the Svarim of the Rambam, and I started going, and I investigated different medical schools. I considered Andrew Weil's program of naturopathic Western medicine. I considered osteopathic medicine. I considered chiropractic medicine. And the approach that virtually all of these endeavors had, the common denominator was they were all essentially saying, let's take this to treat that. Rather than looking at what is the root of the problem, what's going on here, why is it occurring, and what is the message Hashem is giving me. And I found the closest thing to what I was looking for in Chinese medicine, which deals not only with the body, but the emotions and the spirit and their interaction, as well as biochemically, biomechanically, and bioelectrically, which is very important to me to create balance, and craniosacrotherapy. And I studied under John Upledger, the founder of craniosacrotherapy. I took many courses from the Upledger Institute. But I still hadn't found my answer. Where was Jewish medicine? And so I decided to study Chinese medicine. And one day while I was in the library, I came across a remarkable passage. The Rambam says in Hilchot Deot, Perek Gimel, he says that a person needs to, quote unquote, lechavein et libo ladat Hashem. A person needs lechavein. What does lechavein mean? When you have a watch, you fine tune it. So the person needs to fine tune their heart to be able to block out the extraneous noise. In order to know Hashem. And it's impossible, the Rambam says, to know Hashem if one is hungry, sick, or in pain. And I said, this is Jewish medicine. And I used the different modalities that I studied. Orthomolecular medicine, craniosacrotherapy, Chinese medicine, acupuncture, as tools. And ultimately I came to realize that the medicine I'm practicing is nothing more than shlichut. It's all serving. I was in the messenger service business born. I'm still in the messenger service business. It's doing Hashem's work. And so it's not natural medicine. And it's not chemical medicine. It's supernatural medicine. And the more I involve Hashem in the picture, the more success I've been as a shliach. So I practice supernatural Jewish medicine.
Amazing, lovely. Okay, let's just dive straight in. Tazriah. Why is it that a woman giving birth is in a state of impurity? And why is it that she has to stay in a state of impurity for 7 days for a boy and 14 days for a girl? Could you expand on that for us?
Yes. It's really fascinating. What is Tumor? What is impurity? In Hashem's world, there are no vacuums. Any place where there is a vacuum, it is filled in by Tumor. The higher the Kedusha, the more the Tumor tries to fill in, to find empty spaces. And what is a woman, when she's giving birth, doing? She's doing the most godlike activity possible.
Right.
She is bringing life, kaviyachol, as it were, into the world.
The most creative thing any human being can do.
Absolutely.
Right. The most godlike.
The most godlike. But the remarkable thing about that is that after she has given birth, after she's reached this pinnacle of godly potential that a human being can have, there's a space.
Vacuum.
There's a vacuum. And so the greater the space, the greater the tumor. And why is it that if a woman gives birth to a female, there's double the tumor?
Right.
Because every woman potentially is creating another life, another life, another life. And so the greater the potential for Kedusha and heights, the greater the tumor.
So the fact that she's giving birth to someone who's going to give birth, it's a higher level of creation than giving birth to a boy.
That's right.
And therefore a higher level of tumor that comes in as a vacuum.
That's right.
Beautiful. And is there some significance between the 7 days for a boy of tumor and then 33 days before she can eat the tumor, and making it over 40? There's something special, I feel, about the number 40 in that situation.
Well, we know that a life has viability after 40 days. And so I would suspect the spiritual potential that is there is this new existence that's coming into the world that wasn't there before. Just like we say, we're in our new home now. A home has a neshama. We want to be able to fill it in. Every opportunity to fill in spaces is bringing more godliness into the world. The Torah tells us, "B'chol derachecha de'ehu, u'yashar achotecha." It's actually from Shlomo Melech in Mishlei, that know him in all of your ways, and he'll straighten out your paths. That means that we have to do everything we can to fill in voids, to fill in emptiness, to not let ourselves be pulled into the whirlpool of the chaos around us.
Okay, so let's try to understand a little bit, because I'm a little bit confused with the area of the difference between physical ailment, physical disease, and a spiritual disease. In Tazriah, we're talking about a spiritual disease that manifests itself in a physical form, in the form of skin, but that disease has come about through spiritual misuse of your speech, which is the most creative part that we have from God. So that we class that as a spiritual illness.
That's right.
What is the difference between that and a physical ailment, something that starts from the inside the body, as opposed to on the surface of the body?
Well, the truth is, there really isn't any difference at all.
That's what I suspected, but tell us more.
Okay. First of all, it's interesting. You look at the word for skin. Originally, Adam Rishon also was born with a skin that was spelled Aleph Vav Resh. And yet, after they sinned, after Adam and Chava sinned in the Eitz Hadas, the Aleph became an Ayin. And what is the word Or, Ayin Vav Resh? It's the same letters as Ro'ah, evil. Because that which is superficial, that which is purely on the surface, is evil. Do you follow?
No.
Okay. Take the letters. What do we say on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? Uteshuva, utefila, utzedaka, ma'avirim et roa hagazera. Right. Roa is the same letters as or. So the essence of evil is looking at something superficial.
I see.
That's the real illness, and that's the real source of all illness. Let's take it one step further. The skin, we're taught in both Jewish medicine as well as in Chinese medicine, for that matter. The skin is like a tip of the iceberg. What is the iceberg? It's the liver. When a person has a physical ailment that affects the skin, dermatitis, invariably there is a deeper problem in the liver. So by taking a steroid or by putting some kind of cream on it, all you're doing is driving that illness deeper inside.
Instead of allowing it to come out.
Instead of figuring out the source of it and addressing it. Why is the word liver called kaved? Kaved means heavy, because it's the heaviest organ of the body. It contains all the emotions. It's loaded like a big sponge loaded with blood. And it's also very, very full of fluid. The body is 70%, just like the oceans are. The earth is 70% fluid, so too the liver is 70% of water. And this big sponge needs to be honored and dealt with properly. Not only that, but Al Pi Kabbalah, we're told that the neshama resides in the brain, the ruach resides in the heart, and the nefesh bahamit, the animal soul, resides in the liver. The blood, the liver, it's all interconnected. Our very primitive self. And so when we say we're affected by illness, the first place that we get the message that Hashem gives it to us is in the skin. Hashem is tapping us in the shoulder and saying, wake up, I'm going to give you a small hint that something is off. If you don't get it, then the message will go deeper and deeper and deeper. The first part of the body that's affected is the purely animalistic part of the body, which is the nefesh bahamit, the animal soul, which is manifested in the liver. The liver can affect the digestive tract, the pancreas, the lungs, tremendous connection between the lungs and, of course, the skin. And, of course, the connection between these three parts, the liver, the heart, and the brain, corresponding to the head, the heart, and the lower, and our reproductive organs. You know, they're all interconnected, they're all intertwined. And so illness is just a message if something is off, just a message from Hashem to pay attention. And we can figure out what the message is many ways. We can look at the eyes, we can look at the tongue, we can feel the pulses. And by looking at all these different clues that Hashem is giving us, we're getting clarity. We're starting to hear what Hashem's message is. We're starting to be mechaven et libenu, to fine-tune our hearts to understand Hashem. The heart being the matrix between the brain up above and the liver down below, the neshama and the nefesh bahamis.
So let's explore this a bit further, because the Alshech is saying that there is a difference between a physical illness and a spiritual one, although I suspect, like you said, the source of both is a spiritual thing. But he says that when it comes to a physical ailment, you can go to the doctor, and with Hashem's help, the doctor is a messenger of Hashem, through the prescriptions that he gives you can fix this situation in a physical situation. But it is absolutely no good to go to a doctor to fix a spiritual ailment. And the Alshech said that you can't even, the priest, the Kohen that you're supposed to go to doesn't even fix it. He just announces it, whether you're Tamei or Tahor. But the actual fixing, the only person that can fix it is you. The person that's ill. Is a fantastic learning and such an empowerment to know that we are both the people that actually created the illness and have the key to, and we're the only ones that have the key to fix it. What's your thoughts about that?
I'm reminded of a famous Ramban in Parashat Bechukotai. The Ramban tells us that when the Jews follow the path of Hashem, and it's not even necessarily talking about Mashiach's times, as a community and as individuals, the role of doctors will be educators. And there's no reason to rely on doctors, because a person will go to a tzaddik, they'll go to a kohen, they'll go to a chacham, they'll get clarity as to what they need to work on in themselves, and doctors will teach them how to eat, how to conduct themselves. That is what Jewish medicine is. Jewish medicine is having an awareness of where one is off. There's a Gemara in Brachot, I think it's in Daf Samach Aleph, where it talks about there's a dispute between three of the Amoraim as to what the role of the doctor is. And I believe it's Rav Achai who says that one really doesn't need to go to a doctor. But people, because they're accustomed to going to doctors, they should go to doctors, and they should say, the treatment that I'm getting from the doctor, Hashem, you should cause to be matzliach, because you are the real doctor. So, in a sense, it's a matter of where we put our priorities. A person it doesn't say in the Torah that a person should go to a doctor. It says rather, v'rapo yirapeh, that a doctor has permission to heal if a doctor is being brought into the picture. So really, we don't need doctors. The doctor's role ultimately should be number one, to wake a patient up, to empower them to look within as to what they might be doing wrong. Just like I did when I decided to study medicine. What am I doing that's off? What is Hashem telling me that I'm not listening to? And then once I decide where I'm going to, I can choose to listen to Hashem, or I can choose to say that healing is really quite mechanical, and I'll go to the doctor, I'll take the doctor's treatment, I'm just being disingenuous, I'm being dishonest with myself, because I'm not recognizing, this is what the point you were making before, I'm not recognizing that truly all illness has a component of the physical as well as the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional. Every illness.
So let's look at this quote in Shemot that says, Ani Adonai Rofecha. It's such a powerful statement. If we truly believe that, then why would we ever need to go to doctors or anybody else, or healers, or anyone like that? Or are we not at the level where we can rely on that today?
Well, that's the essential dispute between the Ramban and the Rambam. The Rambam says you should, because we are not on a level to be able to do it. The Ramban says that we can if we really want to do that. One of the lessons that the great Kabbalists and the Hasidic masters taught us is that with Ratzon we can have anything. We need to be able to make ourselves quiet first of all. We have to look within. The Rebbe Melech of Lezhensk teaches us that when a person has bad thoughts, one needs to open up to a chaver ne'eman and not hold back anything. And Rabbi Nachman says the same thing about the importance of vidui. We need to open up. When we open up, that, the Gemara says, that which we admit will be forgotten in Shemayim. That which we do not admit, that which we quote unquote forget, will be reminded to us.
Well, so let's talk about the mechanics of healing.
Yes.
What I was fascinated to hear, the Alshech again says in both cases, the spiritual and physical ailment, it takes a second to become ill, but it takes a lot longer to heal ourselves. I mean, even if you look at the process of the Mezorah and Tazriah, someone who's impure, he has to go to isolation for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and only then the mechanism of healing starts, because then, although at that stage the symptoms might have gone, he's still not purified until he does so many things, the sacrifice, the birds, the whole host of things.
And waiting, so much waiting.
And so much waiting. Why does it take so long to heal? After all, you said before that nothing stands instead of the will. So if you will yourself to heal, you think, okay, you've done your teshuvah, you understood where you went wrong, you're back on the derech, you fixed it mentally, spiritually. Why is it that the body is 3 months behind?
I'll ask you a question. When you have a big plate of food in front of you, and you haven't eaten, and you start to eat, are you aware when you're full? Of course not. You find it afterwards.
Right.
That's part of the fine-tuning process. Hashem is telling us when we become ill, we've gotten very, very, very far off of where we need to be. We've really gotten into a deep, deep ditch, a detour. And Hashem is saying that intrinsically and inherently part of the healing process is waiting. It's interesting that most people think, if I would ask you, what would I receive greater reward for? A positive commandment or a negative commandment? Doing something which involves proactively asserting myself, or not violating what Hashem has said to do? The logical answer is, that's what I say.
I'm doing something, yeah.
Doing something. The brilliance of the Torah is that it's just the opposite. Again, we find the same thing in Western philosophy, Western thinking, trying to find quick answers. What can I take to solve this problem? Instead of allowing myself to make myself a vessel, to reflect, to think, to ask Hashem, what do you want from me? Making myself a good listener. There's so much noise in our lives that we don't hear what Hashem's messages are. And I would suggest, in my humble opinion, that perhaps the reason why we need so much time is because part of the healing process is the humility that comes with waiting.
Well, let's go to a practical level. Somebody's ill, unfortunately. So he has a choice. He can either go to the doctor, he can go to a holistic doctor, he can go to the Eastern medicines, or he can go to Hashem. What is the thinking process that a person should go through, your opinion, to get to the right solution?
Right. Parenthetically, I'll tell you that it is critically important that one know what path to take, know how to go. One of the things that I've learned over the years in my practice is that unlike Western medicine, where you take a medicine that will work 70-80% of the time, or even herbal medicine, this is very successfully used, you're essentially taking more spaghetti and throwing it in the wall and hoping that something will stick. And that's not the way of the medicine of Hashem. The way of healing, the way of the medicine of Hashem, is to figure out exactly what is off, exactly what is wrong, and to put the exact key, with the exact number of teeth in the key, into the lock to be able to turn it and open it. If it is not a perfect fit, it will not open, and one will not have success in healing. So, with that background, how should one go about seeking healing? Well, the first thing one needs to do is to look within. How have I been leading my life? Has my life been in harmony with what Hashem would expect from me? And what does that mean specifically? Am I going to bed at a healthy hour? Or am I staying up late? Am I exposing myself to all kinds of poisons and toxicity, be it food, be it environment, be it technology? Am I eating in healthy times? Am I finding time for Hashem in my life? Am I in a place where I have quiet? If there are any questions in any of those areas, then indeed I need to make those changes first. I need to be able to peel off layers of dysfunctionality in myself, and by peeling off those layers, I'll come to recognize Hashem more clearly. That's number one. Number two, I need to talk to others who either have directed the path towards healing or who have taken the path towards healing themselves. Number three, and most importantly, I need to talk to Hashem. I need to ask Hashem, by all of the previous, where are you? What message are you giving me? I know that everything you do is good. If I'm not feeling you're good, help me to see what you do that's good for me. If I'm out of balance, I want to look at myself physically. Is one shoulder higher than the other? Am I limping? Do I have stomach pains? What is causing all of these imbalances? And invariably, if I look carefully enough, I will find, if not the reason, the path to find the reason as to why I am out of balance and how that imbalance is causing me to grow crooked. The same way, like if one sees a tree and there's been a windstorm and suddenly the tree is bent over. There was a great physicist, Canadian physicist, whose name was Hans Selye. I don't know if you know who he was. Selye formulated the general adaptation syndrome. And he said in any living being that's affected by some kind of insult, it will adapt and it'll grow crooked and it'll keep functioning until it completely crashes. Because within the cosmos, If there is imbalance, it will continue to be out of balance until there is a force that is acted upon it to correct it. Often, when somebody is sick, they don't even realize themselves that they've been affected by an insult, be it emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual. And so, even though they're peeling off levels, even though they are living a life which supposedly is in balance, they're eating good foods, unless that original trauma, insult, is affected, and they are put in balance, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, the ill person won't be able to heal Hashem. And that's where the physician of Jewish medicine will come into the picture. This is why there must be balanced, reestablished.
But this physician is a representative of Hashem as opposed to a representative of a medical institution.
That's right.
There are very few people like that. Even religious doctors stick to the formula. You know, they've got protocols.
Yes.
It's very sad state of affairs.
It's very sad, and most people are not willing to take the dare of going to the uncomfortable situation of saying that I want to protect this beautiful being. I want to find out why this person has gotten out of balance, how I can help them. I want to please Hashem by what I'm doing.
I think it's this quest of looking for the source as opposed to trying to camouflage the symptoms.
Yes.
That's the key point. So I remember we had dinner Friday night at the Hoffmans the other time. I asked the question I'd like to ask you again. Give us 10 key pointers on how to stay healthy and maintain that state of health.
10 pointers.
If you can. I mean, if you don't, just give us 5.
I'll tell you what comes off the top of my head.
Okay.
Number one, I would say the most important thing is try to find Hashem in your life. If you know that Hashem is with you and cares about you, the Baal Shem Tov says that Hashem is your shadow, and the more you reflect on Him, the more He'll reflect on you. The second thing is, don't act presumptuously. Don't act impetuously. Be thoughtful before you make any decision. Because that's the way that the forces of evil that want to bring us down and that challenge us, that's the way they work. It's an emergency situation. You have to act very quickly. No. Step back, think, reflect, and invariably ask Hashem for guidance and He'll give it to you. Number 3, consider that everything you do has multiple ramifications and reverberations. Know that nothing you do is insignificant, whether what you're eating, how you conduct yourself, where you're going. And this brings us to our 4th, I guess, rule or principle or idea, that Hashem loves me, and Hashem created the world for me, and I'm unique and specific. And because I'm unique and specific, Hashem, I believe, doesn't want me to fall. Hashem doesn't want me to make myself sick and incapacitated. Hashem wants me to flourish. And so I want to hear His voice, and I want to be able to get close to Him. Another principle is that I want to know that everything that happens in my life, no matter how bad it feels, is really for my good. And because it's for my good, it's my job to have the maturity to step back and try to figure out, even though it doesn't feel good now, maybe if I think about it, I can figure out why I'm going through it. Nothing happens in a purely physical manner. There has to be an emotional, spiritual component of it. The Baal Shem Tov was famous for saying that if a person has a small hole in in their body, they have a big hole in their neshama. Everything we do superficially should affect what's inside and vice versa. The way we dress, the way we talk to people, the way we smile at people, everything has repercussions. Everything is significant. Everything is important. When you think that what you do is important, and when you think that everyone else you're relating to is important, then how can you want to find fault in them? There's a wonderful, wonderful sefer that I learn every day. The sefer is called Tumor. It's by the Ramak, Moshe Alshech. And one of the great Hasidic masters, Divrei Chaim of Tzanz, says, it's anecdotally said about him, that he said that anyone who learns it on a regular basis, who finishes it each month, so to speak, will never be smitten by the Machala Yedua, the known illness, cancer. Why? Because when one realizes that Hashem is part of their life, and the Torah teaches how to involve Hashem in every aspect of our life, then one won't create a void which needs to be filled in by these destructive cells. And so they won't be smitten by it.
So you say, fill your life with goodness and connection with God, so there's a vacuum for the impurities to come in.
That's right.
As you read these two parashiyot today, with all your wisdom and knowledge and experience, what item sort of jumps out to you that you might not have noticed before?
When we think about the principle of Tumor in our daily life, there are those who rationalize and say that, well, today everybody's tamei. It's nice to wash my hands before eating bread. It's nice to go to mikveh. But how does this all relate to us today? Being here in Tzfat, one feels the godliness, one feels the kedusha, one feels the incredible chen and chesed that's here. The Zohar Kodesh says, Ezehu chasid hamit chasedim kono, that one who is a chassid is someone who does chesed with the Ribono Shel Olam. And if we consider that every part of our life really involves sensitizing ourselves to Kedusha, not wanting to put oneself in a place where one will feel disconnected from Hashem, being aware of things that I may not have been aware of before, is really preparing ourselves for when the Beis Hamikdash will be there. Because what we have to do, what this world is all about, is to live with our God. With our God. Yes, we don't have a paraduma. Yes, we don't have a Beis Hamikdash. Yes, we don't have karbanot, but we have our shulchan that we eat on. Our shulchan is like a mizbeach.
We have a prayer.
We have our prayer. We have the tzaddikim. But our sages tell us that those who make themselves more sensitive, God reveals himself to them more. And that's how this idea of Kedusha and Tahara really applies to our lives. Eretz Israel has a special energy to it. We talked originally, when we first started, about the presence of the neshama in the brain, the presence of the ruach in the heart, and the presence of the nefesh, the primitive soul, in the liver. And if you look at 3 cities in Eretz Israel, you find that manifested. And you find many other manifestations as well. You find Tzfat is the neshama. It's the highest part. It's in the brain. It's located in the north of Eretz Israel. You find Yerushalayim is the heart. It's the fire. Where the heart is, it's the center of us. That's Yud. And you find where the most beautiful hedonistic place in all of Eretz Yisrael was centered. The plains of what became the Yarden. What was there? Stone. And it became from the garden place to nothing but a volcanic mess. And what city is located where Sodom is? Arad. And you look at those three letters, the capital, the Rosh Tevot, the first letters of each of those three cities, and you find Hashem's presence in all three of them, reflecting the neshama, the ruach, the ruach and the nefesh, tzaddik, yesod, olam, tzfat, ayin, Yerushalayim, yud, arad, ayin. We need all of them. We need to take our most primitive self, that which reflects in the surface, the liver, and elevate it. We don't elevate it by kicking it down, by suppressing it. We nurture it. We train it. We make it feel safe. We take the levavachem of Yerushalayim, the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, and we only see the good in Yerushalayim. And we take our hearts, we validate that there's a lot of fire and there's a lot of destructive energy. And we want to elevate it. If we're worthy, the Ari HaKadosh and all the tzaddikim in Tzfat will welcome us here, and we'll be able to live in this world of total chesed, where there is no Yetzer Tov and there's no Yetzer Hara, there's only chesed.
It's an amazing feeling, I have to say, to all our listeners. It is such a privilege to live in Tzfat under those circumstances. We have time for one last question, and I wanted just to explore the reason why Dafka, the Lashon Hara, is the key trigger for illness. Why is speech such a catalyst for illness?
Lashon Hara. The Chinese, Lahavdil, speak about how the tongue corresponds to the heart. There is an incredible connection between thought, speech, and action. What is speech? Speech is the bridge. Speech, again, because it corresponds to the heart and has both of these aspects of Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara, it's all integrated into how we fine-tune our hearts. If one allows one's heart to run wild, it can burn the world down. In the time when we had the Beit Mikdash, we were so much potentially higher. We had so much greater opportunity to feel Hashem. Hashem would speak to us through our skin, through giving us tzarat. And we'd get the message, aha, I've really disconnected myself from Hashem. And what's the antidote? Distancing myself, making myself quiet, not being mepatpet, not talking and making myself noisy and busy. In our day and age, being on technology, I need to be quiet, I need to be silent, I need to be able to contract. Because the healing has to come from contraction. The Noam Elimelech says in the Tzeitel Katan, again, that one needs to take one's thoughts, one's evil thoughts, and redirect them to a Chaver Ne'eman, or someone who's more lo derech Hashem, somebody who is a guide, a spirit guide. When we don't have a spirit guide, then our mouths are going to direct us all over the place. And so indeed, we see the potential. The Noam Elimelech tells us that we need to be able to express ourselves, but we need to express ourselves in the most constructive manner, with a spirit guide, with a tzaddik, with Hashem, and just making ourselves as quiet as we can to learn really who we are and what we want to do. Because ultimately every Jew, every human being wants to please Hashem. Because we're all his children. What child doesn't want to please his parent? And a child who's been raised with love. And ultimately we have the potential to feel that love. We just need to cultivate it, develop it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for doing the deep dive with me. May I give you a blessing that your stay in Tzfat will be a beautiful, nurturing one, full of nachat and peace and tranquility. And may you have the merit of renovating this beautiful house in as short as this time as possible, in the easiest possible way.
May we all merit to make ourselves merkavot to the Shekhinah.
Thank you so much.